They say Hollywood is a dream factory, a place where stars are born under the dazzling Klieg lights. But beneath the glittering veneer of its golden age lies a darkness, a place where dreams could curdle into nightmares, and where inconvenient truths, and sometimes inconvenient people, were systematically erased. Tonight, we delve into one such story, a chilling account whispered only in the darkest corners of Tinseltown, a scandal so profound it was meticulously scrubbed from the annals of history. Imagine a young woman, on the cusp of superstardom, her laughter echoing on sound stages, her face gracing magazine covers. Then, silence, vanished, as if she were a mere phantom, a trick of the light. But some say she never truly left. They say her story, her spirit, still lingers, a terrifying reminder of the price of fame and the chilling power of those who pull the strings. This isn't just a story of a missing person. It's a tale of Hollywood's darkest underbelly, a whisper of paranormal retribution, and a secret that has clawed its way back from oblivion. Prepare yourselves, because the glamour of old Hollywood often concealed its most terrifying ghosts. What you are about to hear is a story they tried to erase forever. Our story centers around a name you won't find in many film encyclopedias, a face deliberately faded from photographs. Leila Marlowe. In the late 1940s, Leila was a meteor. She possessed a rare combination of incandescent beauty, raw talent, and a fiery spirit that captivated audiences and studio heads alike. She arrived in Hollywood a wide-eyed ingenue, but quickly proved she was more than just a pretty face. Her early roles, though small, crackled with an undeniable energy. Critics hailed her as the next big thing, and Phoenix Pictures, one of the era's most powerful studios, quickly signed her to an ironclad 7-year contract. Leila's ascent was swift. Within 2 years, she was headlining major productions, her name whispered alongside the established queens of the silver screen. But Leila was different. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind, a rarity in an era where stars were expected to be beautiful, malleable, and above all, obedient. She clashed, often privately, but sometimes openly, with the studio's iron-fisted patriarch, a man known only as Mr. K. He was a titan, a kingmaker, a man whose word could build empires or shatter careers with a single dismissive wave. Mr. K saw in Leila a golden goose, but also a potential troublemaker. He wanted to mold her, control her image, her life. Leila resisted. She fought for better scripts, for more complex roles, and most dangerously, she began to question the studio's often exploitative practices, especially towards its younger actresses. Whispers began to circulate about Leila keeping a detailed diary, a personal record of her experiences, her observations, and perhaps the darker secrets she was privy to within Phoenix Pictures' hallowed yet menacing walls. Some even said she'd managed to make surreptitious audio recordings, snippets of conversations, confrontations, things never meant to leave the confines of executive suites. These became known in hushed tones as the Marlowe tapes. The tension between Leila and Mr. K escalated. He saw her defiance not as strength, but as a threat to his absolute control. Publicly, the studio maintained the facade of a harmonious relationship, but behind closed doors, Leila was subjected to immense pressure, veiled threats, and systematic isolation. Her confidants were subtly reassigned. Her calls to certain industry figures went unreturned. She was being managed, contained. Then, in the autumn of 1949, at the very peak of her burgeoning fame, Leila Marlowe vanished. The official story, carefully crafted by Phoenix Pictures' formidable publicity machine, was tragic but simple. Leila, exhausted and emotionally fragile, had taken an unannounced trip to find solace, perhaps even eloping with a mysterious suitor. They painted her as flighty, unreliable. When weeks turned into months with no word, the narrative shifted again. She had likely met with a tragic accident, her car veering off a cliff on some remote coastal road, her body lost to the unforgiving Pacific. No body was ever found, no car, no definitive proof. The studio mourned her publicly, a grand, sorrowful charade. Mr. K himself gave a tearful and widely reported eulogy at a symbolic memorial service. But behind the scenes, a different kind of operation was underway. Any and all records of Leila Marlowe's more controversial opinions, any hint of her tapes or detailed diary, were meticulously hunted down and destroyed. Studio employees who knew too much were either handsomely paid off and sworn to secrecy, or found their own careers inexplicably curtailed. Film prints of her less successful early movies were lost. Unflattering press clippings vanished from archives. It was a systematic, chilling erasure. Leila Marlowe was being unwritten from history. For decades, her name became a footnote, a half-forgotten tragedy, exactly as Phoenix Pictures intended. The studio lot, where she'd once shone so brightly, continued to churn out films, its dark secret buried deep beneath layers of concrete and celluloid. But some stories, some spirits, refused to be silenced. Fast forward to the early 2000s. Phoenix Pictures, a shadow of its former self, finally sold its historic studio lot to developers. During preliminary demolitions of Soundstage 7, Leila's favorite and the site of her last known appearance, workers reported strange occurrences. Cold spots in inexplicably warm rooms, the faint scent of a forgotten, old-fashioned perfume, whispers that seemed to echo from the very walls, too faint to understand, yet undeniably present. Tools would go missing, only to reappear in odd places. Lights would flicker and die, even with new wiring. Most unsettling were the stories from the night watchman. One seasoned guard, a no-nonsense ex-cop named Sal, swore he saw a woman in a 1940s-style dress pacing the darkened stage, her form translucent, her face etched with an unbearable sadness. He said he heard her humming a melancholic tune, a song from one of Leila's unreleased films. When he called out, she would simply fade away. Sal quit soon after, refusing to elaborate further, his face pale with a fear he couldn't articulate. Then came Amelia Vance, a young, tenacious film historian obsessed with Hollywood's forgotten figures. She'd stumbled upon a cryptic reference to Leila Marlowe in an obscure, out-of-print biography of a contemporary actor. The brief mention hinted at a darker story, a cover-up. Intrigued, Amelia began to dig. She spent years sifting through dusty archives, interviewing aging industry veterans, many of whom still spoke of Leila in hushed, fearful tones. Amelia learned about the rumors of the diary, the Marlowe tapes, and the iron grip of Mr. K. She became convinced that Leila hadn't just disappeared. She'd been deliberately silenced, her legacy erased. The demolition of Soundstage 7 provided Amelia with a morbid, final opportunity. Posing as a researcher for the development company, she gained limited access to the site, just days before its complete destruction. The atmosphere inside the cavernous, decaying soundstage was oppressive. Dust motes danced in the few shafts of light piercing the gloom. The air was heavy, thick with the ghosts of countless productions. Amelia felt an unnerving chill, a sense of being watched. She focused on an old, bricked-up section of a dressing room area, a section rumored to have been Lila's private suite, sealed off for reasons unknown shortly after her disappearance. With the foreman's reluctant permission, and using the cover of documenting historical structures, Amelia and a small, trusted crew began to carefully dismantle the bricks. Behind the wall, they found a small, forgotten alcove, caked in decades of dust. And there, tucked away in a rotting wooden box, was not a diary, nor a collection of tapes, but a single, small, dented audio reel, its label faded almost beyond legibility. It bore one word: Lila. The discovery felt monumental, yet terrifying. What secrets did this single reel hold? As Amelia carefully handled the fragile tape, a sudden, icy gust of wind swept through the sealed alcove, extinguishing their battery-powered lanterns. The temperature plummeted. A soft, sorrowful whisper seemed to fill the small space. A woman's voice, tinged with an ethereal echo, saying, "He lied. They all lied." The sound was faint, yet clear, and undeniably not from any of the crew. Panic began to set in. One of Amelia's assistants screamed, pointing to a dark corner where a shadowy, feminine silhouette seemed to coalesce for a heart-stopping moment before vanishing. They knew, with a primal certainty, they were not alone, and that whatever presence lingered there was connected to the reel in Amelia's hand. Shaken but resolute, Amelia clutched the fragile reel. Back in her makeshift lab, hands trembling, she carefully threaded the ancient tape onto a restored reel-to-reel player. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the soft whir of the machine as the tape began to turn. For a moment, there was only static, a hiss that seemed to carry the weight of forgotten years. Then, a sound emerged, faint at first, distorted. It was a woman's voice, young, vibrant, yet laced with an undeniable undercurrent of fear. It was Lila Marlowe. The recording was fragmented, a desperate whispered monologue. "Can't trust anyone. He watches everything. The promises are lies." Her voice broke, then continued, stronger, angrier. "Proof. I have it. They can't silence everyone. Not if people know." Suddenly, the recording was interrupted by a sharp, muffled sound, like a door slamming, followed by a man's gruff, indistinct voice, authoritative and menacing. Then, the most terrifying part. The quality of the audio shifted, becoming clearer, as if the microphone was suddenly very close to Lila. Her voice, now barely a whisper, trembling with raw terror, uttered a single horrifying sentence that froze Amelia to her core. "He's here. Oh God, he found me. Don't let them." The recording cut off abruptly with a sickening, muffled thud, followed by dead air. As the tape hissed into silence, the lights in Amelia's lab flickered violently. A wave of intense cold washed over her, and the distinct scent of old perfume, the same one reported on Soundstage 7, filled the room. On the wall opposite her, for a fleeting, horrifying instant, the shadow of a tall man loomed over the projected image of Leela Marlowe, his form indistinct, but radiating pure menace. Then, just as quickly, it was gone. The reel had given up its terrible secret. A final ghostly testament from Leela herself, confirming her worst fears and her murder. The erasure hadn't just been of her career. It had been of her life, orchestrated from the highest echelons of Phoenix Pictures, by a man who would stop at nothing to protect his empire and his secrets. The paranormal activity wasn't just a haunting. It was Leela, or the residue of her tragic end, trying to make the truth known. Amelia, though deeply shaken, eventually leaked the restored audio and her research to independent media outlets. The Leela Marlowe tapes, as they became known, caused a sensation, a brief, intense storm that rocked the remnants of old Hollywood. Phoenix Pictures, long since absorbed by a larger conglomerate, issued denials, but the damage was done. The erased Starlet finally had her voice heard, decades too late. No charges were ever filed. Mr. K had died years before, taking his darkest secrets to the grave. The physical evidence was too degraded, the witnesses too few or too fearful, even after all that time. Yet, Leela Marlowe's story, resurrected from the ashes of forgotten history and spectral whispers, serves as a chilling reminder. A reminder that behind the manufactured dreams of Hollywood, real nightmares can unfold, and that sometimes the most terrifying ghosts are not those of fiction, but the lingering spirits of truths brutally silenced. What happened on Soundstage 7 that fateful night in 1949? We may never know the full, horrifying details, but Leela's voice, carried on that single ghostly reel, speaks volumes. How many other Leela Marlowes are out there, their stories erased, their voices silenced by the powerful? It makes you wonder, doesn't it? The next time you watch a classic film from Hollywood's golden age, remember the shadows that danced just outside the frame. Some of them might have been desperately trying to tell you a story. What would you do if you found such a tape? Would you dare to listen? If this journey into Hollywood's haunted history sent a shiver down your spine, please conjure up a like for this video and share it with fellow connoisseurs of the creepy and forgotten. Don't forget to subscribe and materialize that notification bell so you never miss our weekly descent into the darkest tales. What Hollywood scandal do you think needs to be unearthed? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, sleep tight, and perhaps keep a light on. You never know whose story is waiting to be heard in the silence.